Subscribe to LearnCap and hit the bell icon to get notified.
Hello everyone, good morning. I see that many of you are already on time. Thank you so much for joining in and a warm welcome to all of you. I am CA Meghna Suresh from LearnCab and I'll be the host for this webinar. So if you have to rate audit paper in terms of easy, difficult or medium, what would it be? Mostly between difficult or medium. So the struggle between tons of auditing standards after dealing with accounting standard is real. We still have confusion as to how to study auditing for various entities like banking, cooperative society, etc. We all know the concepts well but unable to present well in the exam and badly need easy tips and tricks to study this theory subject. Are you facing the same issue and still want to score an exemption in audit? Alright, I see that many of you want to score good marks. That's great. Well, you guys have done absolutely the right thing by signing up for this webinar because today we have the king of auditing paper himself who makes the paper so interesting and easy to learn with his unique teaching techniques. Let's all welcome CA Vikas Oswal sir. Vikas sir is a fellow member of the ICI and resides in Bangalore. He has over 18 plus years, which is almost 2 decades of experience in teaching auditing for CA intermediate and CA final students at ICI and many other private institutions. He is the author of one of the most definitive books on audit for CA intermediate, CA IPCC and CA final students. His way of teaching concepts is dynamic, dramatic, and entertaining. He holds various diplomas like DISA and ACS. Today, Vikas Oswal will be guiding us on the structure of the paper and the course, some tips and tricks, and how to plan for exemption in this paper and related areas.
My dear soldiers, today we have assembled here to bring out our strategy towards auditing final paper, which we are going to face in January and May. How to make the best use of it actually. See, whenever any examination gets over, my first thing is that at 5 o'clock evening, I download the auditing final paper or intermediate paper. I take the paper in my hand and I see that whether I am able to answer those questions, whether those questions were discussed in the class, and whether a direction was given to the student. If a faculty himself is not able to answer those questions, then we don't have a right here to stay here to talk to you also. So it's very, very important that to know that what is going around you. And this November 2020 examination paper also reflects the same thing, the mindset of the ICI, that what they are looking at actually, what is exactly what knowledge parameter they are looking at, that is what we have to understand here. If we do a proper strategy, proper preparation, then auditing will definitely become a very simple and easy paper for you. But we need to have a right approach for the examination, and that right approach, right strategy, it can always place us to in a comfortable position when it comes to the auditing paper. So my dear soldiers, let us embark into journey as to how to approach this paper. How can we be effective actually without breaking our head, what we can do actually. So this is what the webinar series is all about. So when I took the paper at 5 o'clock evening, I run through the paper. Of course, yes, the paper is for 84 marks. You have to write for 70 marks. An MCQ you don't know. So you have to ask students from which area they had asked MCQ. And that too, the memory period for them is very short. So you have to ask them on that day of examination itself, evening 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and understand that what really examiner is looking at. At the same time, my dear soldiers, looking at the comments of examiner, that what they are expecting from the students. Some students, they say that auditing is very easy, very simple. Anyway, we have done articleship, so fine, we know that. But many a times what happens, students don't know such areas actually here. Many a times some students are stuck in some tax audit, concurrent audit, but audit is not like that. So today, let us have a holistic approach towards the subject. How do we prepare for the examination? How it can be effective? The first thing, my dear soldiers, is when we talk about audit, my dear soldiers, the subject as such is to be divided into 6 parts. The 6 parts it is to be divided. That is a first and the foremost thing actually here. That is the first thing. 6 parts you have to divide. The main thing, my dear soldiers, is the standards on auditing. That is the first and the foremost thing actually here. So of course, yes, this is the area where students find it challenging actually here. So first, what you should be doing is that you need to divide the subject into 6 parts. That is a first thing, my dear soldiers. That is the thing. My dear soldiers, first of all, divide the CA final auditing into 6 parts. So this division helps us actually to focus on areas and so that there is no confusion actually here. So that is the first thing. So the part one, my dear soldiers, is auditing standards. You have a chapter called audit planning, strategy and execution, and risk assessment and internal control. Now these 3 chapters are focusing only on the standards on auditing. That is the first thing. So if you see the marks weightage also, 30 to 35 marks you score in these areas. That is why it's important. Now many a times examiner, they have a question that the students are not writing the answer as per the material. They have a big complaint. We understand the subject, we process our understanding, but the answer is not as per the material. That is a big challenge here. So now what happens, my dear soldiers? Your understanding of subject is different, but writing is different. That writing should be as per the material. That's what they highlight actually here. The words, phrase. See, who evaluates the auditing paper? Not only chartered accountants, but the teachers who have 5-year teaching experience. Even they also are into evaluation of auditing paper. They'll be given a key of answer. The key of answer should match. So in the part one, you have around 35 standards on auditing. 35 standards on auditing are there. How to approach this standard, I will tell you. The second part, you should divide into audit of limited company, audit reports, audit committee and corporate governance, and audit of consolidated financial statement. These 4 chapters, my dear soldiers, will fetch you 20 to 25 marks will come from these 4 chapters. So you have to read this chapter as a cluster. As a cluster only you should read it. Of course, audit report is made even again of standards on auditing. That is SA 700 series standards are there. Okay. So it is made of those standards, my dear soldiers. But at the same time, you have to read along with the company audit. Mainly, students have a confusion that whether we should read CARO 16 or whether we should read CARO 2020. ICI new material talks about CARO 2020, and now MCA comes out with a circular. That important question I will answer you as we progress in our discussion. So the second part is all about the chapters which are related to company law and company law related chapter. If you take audit committee and corporate governance, this chapter is focusing more on the listed companies. What are the additional compliances a listed company should do? Similarly, the fourth chapter, audit of consolidated financial statement, talks about those companies which has got several subsidiaries like parent company, holding company having several subsidiaries. How do you do audit of those companies? So the part 2 revolves around companies, different types of companies. So next one, the next one, my dear soldiers, is the next part. We talk about the professional ethics actually. So professional ethics, my dear soldiers, is the third part actually here. So when we talk about the professional ethics, now in this case, what happens, my dear soldiers? Professional ethics, it deals with the this chapter. Generally, I find students find it very comfortable and very easy with this particular area. And professional ethics is one easy area, but earlier exams they were asking 20 marks question from professional ethics. Now they have reduced to 12 marks. In earlier examination, what used to get all the professional ethics question in one single lot. Say 12 marks, 16 marks will be related to professional ethics. So it was easy, but now they club professional ethics question with other questions. So that is what their way of making it little complex. That's the thing. So ethics question may be easy, but other question may be challenging. So how do you address that? So in a cluster, you should read professional ethics, which is all about Chartered Accountants Act 1949. Then you should read about peer review and quality review. Of course, for old syllabus, quality review is not applicable. You have to read only peer review. Quality review is not applicable for you for old syllabus. So peer review, quality review, these are the mechanisms which are uh, formed by ICI to monitor the functioning of a chartered accountant. Of course, when we talk about professional ethics is all about how a CA should conduct, how he should behave. Then liabilities of auditor. What are the liabilities of a CA outside the CA Act? Like say Companies Act, like say Income Tax Act. So these three part you should always read it together. I'll make it a point that this PPT is made available to you, so you don't have to worry. If you want to script something, you can script in your notes, but this PPT will be made available to you. Don't worry about that. Then part 4 is all about banks, insurance and NBFC. So this is one a different sector altogether actually. So again, what strategy we use for ethics, what strategy we use for company audit, we don't apply the same strategy for these chapters also. So as we progress, I'll tell you chapter by chapter what is the strategy we should adopt. So banks, insurance, NBFC can be one cluster, but again the marks is 5 to 10 marks. That's the thing here. Okay, one student, what he did, he purchased a guidance notes on bank audit which is running into 500 pages, and he started studying that. I said don't do it. Already you have 8 papers. Apart from that, bank audit weightage is around 5 marks maximum. So why are you putting so much effort actually buying a guidance note? No, 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 sir, I want to score really good marks in auditing. I said, then if you want to focus good marks, you have to be into relevant learning. You need to be relevant. This chapter, definitely bank is an important area for we practicing chartered accountants, but in examination, the weightage is very low. Now, what happened in that examination? In that examination, not a single question was asked from the bank audit. It's not that I want to feel happy about the student, but the student, he came back to me, he told that, sir, this is a mistake I did actually here. So that is where, see what happens, you may love a topic, but at the same time, what is the weightage for examination? How much time you should spend on that particular topic is also very much important. Okay, but we are not here to do selective learning that okay, I will skip this chapter or which standard I should skip it. No, but I will tell you in each area where to focus, what to focus more actually here. That's the thing here. That is a strategy you should build up. That's the thing. Next one, insurance and NBFC. In insurance, mind you, for new syllabus, you have the audit of general insurance company as well as the life insurance company. But for old syllabus, they have kept only the general insurance company. That's the thing. NBFC, a lot of changes have happened, and this is a favorite child of examiner in the coming examination. So NBFC, you may get some questions actually. This we'll discuss. So weightage wise, first you understand. First, you divide the subject into 6 parts. That is the first thing. Then you have audit under fiscal law. You have the GST audit. You have the tax audit coming into this particular chapters. So this is a separate area. Now here in this chapters, what happens actually, a lot of amendments they have brought into 3CD. 3CD earlier was 32 clauses, then they made it to 41 clauses. Today it is 44 clauses. Plus GST audit chapter also underwent a lot of changes. So here also, yes, this chapter we have to deal it separately. Okay. And last one, part 6 is audit of public sector undertaking, internal audit, management audit, operational audit, due diligence, investigation, forensic audit, and lastly audit under automated environment. So this is the last part, and last part carries a weightage of 10 to 15 marks in the examination. That is the first thing, because I'll tell you every chapter will every part will have a different strategy. Okay, so certain strategies will apply to certain parts and certain strategies will apply to certain parts. That is what we will carry towards the examination. That is the thing. Now next one, so what type of questions are asked, my dear soldiers, in case of standards on auditing? So when you look at the question paper, yes, they have application based question. That is a first thing. So application based case study they will throw at you, and they say come on, solve it. Now it is coming in 2 ways. One, you can get a integrated MCQ also, plus you may get a application based. So both the ways the examiner will show his pressure that okay, we have to draft the question. So in MCQ also standards on auditing question will come, plus application based question also will come. Then, so first you understand that what is the examiner is going to take up. That's the first thing. Whereas in come to part 2, which is nothing but company audit related chapters, here also application based question, plus you may get a direct question. So direct question, what happens, it is always advantageous for us because it's easy. When it comes to application based question, what happens, it creates a kind of pressure in a mind to process the information and come out with the answer. That's one thing. So now, for example, you have audit committee and corporate governance. They have started asking application based question from that particular chapter. For example, what is the composition of audit committee? What is the composition of the board of directors? So application based questions are coming from there. So you have to understand, that is where understanding plays a very important role. And audit reports, draft a report, or audit of limited companies about the qualification disqualification of auditor, again application based question. Some cases, like for example in audit of consolidated financial statement, they may ask you permanent consolidation adjustment, current period consolidation adjustment. So they may ask you some direct question also. So direct question is always an advantageous situation for the students. So the number of direct question will be less, but nevertheless it will be useful for us. Now, numbers. When we talk about MCQ, my dear soldiers, numbers. Now, what is this number? See, what happens? MCQ questions I'm analyzing, and MCQ questions they are asking more based on numbers. Example, what will be the penalty if suppose say an auditor is not appointed? What will be the penalty? Our example say auditor has to be appointed within how many days? So in such case, what happens actually, you have number centric question. So auditor will be barred for how many years? If he is convicted on the grounds of fraud, he is barred for 10 years. So what is happening? This is called as number. Wherever you see numbers, my dear soldiers, please mark it as an MCQ question. It is a high potential for MCQ question. That's the thing. So the examiner also is one side obsessed with the numbers. That's what we are observing actually here. That's the thing. So any related to numbers actually. That's the thing. So this is the first foremost thing you have to understand, that what kind of questions we are getting here. Okay, that's the thing. Then next one in part 3 again, that is related to professional ethics chapter, you will have a application based question and direct question. Of course, peer review, quality review, and liabilities of auditor, lot of times we get direct question, but ethics fairly it is always an application driven. Application driven, that's the thing here. See, for example, and coming up to the MCQ, MCQ also should be an integrated case study. Integrated case study means they'll give a subject matter to you. On that, they'll ask you questions from different topic. They'll give you a case study, and that we have to read it and answer that question. That is integrated case study. So, lot of questions, my dear soldiers, will also come on numbers actually here. So, number of days. So, moment when you're reading the subject actually here, what happens? Any study material you're reading actually here, you have to mark and keep it that okay, it's a number, so it can be a high potential for MCQ. That's the thing. And then after end of every chapter, you have to make a summary of what are the number questions they may ask. That will help you a lot in preparing for MCQ. Okay, that is the one thing. See, for example, the auditor resigned. The auditor resigned. In such case, actually, what happens if he does not comply in filing the requisite forms with the ROC? There is a penalty, and penalty may range up to 50,000 or remuneration of auditor, whichever is less. So on that 50,000, they have asked an MCQ question. Okay, so that is what is numbers. Coming up to banks, insurance, and NBFC, direct question. So this makes the topic very easy actually. So they'll ask you what is statutory liquidity ratio. They'll give you in an audit firm, they are going for bank audit. So the article wants to understand about statutory liquidity ratio. So they may ask you, the direct questions will be there. So that is a big advantage for us. And numbers wise, for example, bank audit, what is a provision for NPA? What is the provision we make whenever the assets are classified into standard asset, substandard asset, doubtful asset, loss asset? Generally, there'll be a table given, but what you do, you neglect it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Moment you see some numbers, make a separate note. This is going to be my MCQ corner. That's the thing here. Okay. Now, next one. Audit under fiscal law, purely application based question will come. And again, MCQ may be based on the numbers. Like for example, how many maximum tax audit a CA can do? 60 numbers. Like that. Those kind of things will come into picture. And coming to part 6 also, audit of PSU, internal audit, management audit, operational audit. These chapters, my dear soldiers, you will get direct question. So that's the thing here. Okay. So whichever chapters you're having direct question, my dear soldiers, you should prepare it first and keep it. That's the thing here. So what happens? Your marks are assured in that area. But generally, what students think in final, they think that auditing means standards on auditing, ethics, and it only about this, and also company audit. That's it. They think okay, other chapters are like that. No. Once you start preparing your strategy for the examination, first you see that okay, from which area they are asking direct question, which area could be application driven, which area could be number driven, integrated case study. Once you are clear with that, your strategy becomes very simple and very easy. That is the thing here. So wherever I have given direct, please finish off those chapters actually here, because they will not put much this thing. They will just ask okay, a company is taking over another company, so if you are doing a due diligence, what is the format of audit report? So at the end you will have a fairly direct question. So that is a big advantage with this. That's the thing here. Now challenge what happens, my dear soldiers, when students are reading the questions of standards on auditing. Sometimes they think that okay, this essay number what they predict will be different number. So that is the thing. That is a always sometimes they take a chance. But with direct question chapters, we can just straight away read the important questions and try to approach for the examination. That's the thing. So this is one thing actually here. It's not that what you read more, it's what you read very much relevant. It's what you read very much relevant, and keep practicing that again and again, my dear soldiers. That is what the success of auditing. Okay, that's the thing. So first divide the subject into parts actually. Now let me come to the standards on auditing. How do we go about the standards on auditing? When it comes to the standards on auditing, my dear soldiers, understand that first you should start the standards from the reverse actually here. You should not start from the 200 series standards, my dear soldiers. You should start from the 700 series standard. Sir, is 200 series standard not important? It is important. It is important, but that you have already read again and again and again and again in your CA intermediate, so you will have more grip. But in the 700 series standard, you may not have that much grip. So first start with the 700 series series of standard, which is again a part of the audit report as well. That is the first thing you should be doing it, my dear soldiers. So you should start with SA 700 series standard, 700, 701, 705, 706, 710, and also 720. These are the 6 standards. First you should complete it. That is the thing here. When we talk about SA 700 standard, it talks about the audit report format. So that you should be very clear. Generally in audit report format, you should be clear with the opinion paragraph, how opinion paragraphs are drafted. Then basis of opinion paragraph, you should be very clear with that. Opinion paragraph, basis of opinion. Then responsibility of management. And lastly, the responsibility of auditor. These 4 paragraphs are very much important, but you should know the structure of audit report: the title, the addressee, the opinion paragraph, basis of opinion, going concern paragraph, key audit matters, then going to management responsibility, auditor's responsibility, location of auditor's responsibility, other matters. So these things you should be very clear, my dear soldiers. And they may ask you a question on what are the specific evaluation while issuing an audit report. Specific evaluation, that whether the financial statements are prepared as per accounting policy is properly selected, properly applied, accounting policy is consistent with the financial reporting framework. So specific evaluation, you should be very clear. 2 things you should focus a lot. When it comes to SA 701, fairly new standard, and this standard 701 is generally applicable to the listed company. This I also call it as a transparency paragraph. SA 701, which talks about key audit matters, transparency paragraph. Auditor is telling that, see, this is the area I found it risky, this is the procedure I applied, this is my conclusion, there is no issue. In key audit matter, read the entire standard thoroughly, because it talks about the definition of the standard. Then it also talks about, see, key audit matter, it ensures that there is a transparency in the reporting. It enhances the transparency of reporting. So that is what it is actually here. So many students don't understand the concept of key audit matter. Generally, in case of listed company, if auditor finds risky area which the shareholder would like the auditor to check, so he's applying the procedure and telling that, see, there are no issue in this area. That is called as the key audit matter paragraph. Okay, so what are the areas it will cover? It will cover the areas of assessed risk of material misstatement, significant risk. So those things you should highlight it. In key audit matter, my dear soldiers, end to end of the standards is very much important. Okay, that is the thing. But fairly here in 701, they'll ask you more of a direct question. That is the thing. Coming up to 705, modification to the opinion in the independent auditors report. Three types of opinion: qualified, adverse, and disclaimer of an opinion. You will be asked to draft an opinion. Draft an opinion on qualified opinion, adverse opinion, and disclaimer of opinion. See what happens, a case study is given. Case study is given that you are doing an audit of an entity and all evidences got destroyed in fire. All evidences got destroyed in fire. You end up giving what? You will end up giving a disclaimer of an opinion. Disclaimer of opinion is given for such kind of situation. Disclaimer opinion we give it. And why are we giving disclaimer of an opinion? See, when majority of evidences are not available, you go for a disclaimer of an opinion. Another case study. You are doing an audit of an entity. No evidence was available for investment in a foreign associate. Then what opinion you will give? You will give a qualified opinion. Please understand, if one or two evidence are not available, you will give a qualified opinion. But if more than two evidences are not available, you will give a disclaimer of an opinion. These are all RTP questions, my dear soldiers. Okay. And when it comes to qualified opinion, see, qualified opinion, either one or two evidence are not available, or there are one or two misstatements. One or two misstatement, for example, inventory was overvalued. So it's a one issue, give a qualified opinion. Another question of May 2017, there was a consolidated financial statement prepared, and when preparing the CFS, the account of one subsidiary company was never considered for the purpose of consolidation. It was never considered at all. The whatever one account was never considered for the purpose of consolidation. Now, in such case, in such scenario, what type of opinion you will give actually here? One entire subsidiary account is not covered. In such case, mean the entire CFS is getting affected. Entire CFS is getting affected means you have to give an adverse opinion. Please understand, if there are one or two mistakes, we give a qualified opinion. More than two mistakes, we give a adverse opinion. So in the case study, when it is given, you'll be wondering that which opinion should I give? Should I give qualified, adverse, and disclaimer? Many a times I see students by hearting question and then writing the answer for that actually. So please don't do that. Of course, go through the question, but don't go to an extent of by hearting, because they'll be wondering that why am I giving a qualified opinion or a disclaimer of opinion? That reasoning is not there. So that reasoning you should bring in here. Okay, that's the thing. So please, by heart, the qualified opinion, adverse opinion, disclaimer of opinion, opinions which are there, that you have to read it thoroughly actually, because in examination they may ask you, they'll give you a practical case study and say draft an opinion. So 705 is going to be a high application based standard. 701, no. Fairly there'll be a direct question on this. When it comes to 706, emphasis of matter paragraph and other matter paragraph in the independent auditor's report. See, emphasis of matter paragraph is a paragraph included in the auditor's report which refers to matters presented and disclosed in the financial statement. In a question, what they will ask, as per note number 9 of financial statement, the company's financial condition is not good. As per note number 9 of the financial statement. Moment they give reference to note, any note actually in the financial statement, it is nothing but emphasis of matter paragraph. Emphasis of matter paragraph is also known as a caution paragraph. It's like a more like you're cautioning the shareholders. Now there are 200 to 300 pages in the annual report of a company, of a listed company. Now shareholder definitely will not go through all the pages. But if you want the shareholder to read a particular paragraph in the financial statement, there we use a emphasis of matter paragraph. In other matter paragraph, we talk about the auditor's responsibility, auditor's report. So we talk more about matters related to audit. Example, we did not do the audit of branches. It was done by some other auditor. So that you will highlight under other matter paragraph. Again, application based question may come from here. Then SA 710 comparatives, corresponding figures and comparative financial statement. See, in the financial statement, along with the current period financial statement, current period numbers, you also are given with the prior period numbers, so that we can compare and take a decision. So it enables, my dear soldiers, for proper decision making of the user of the financial statement. Comparative refers to amounts and disclosure of the prior period. That now under comparative, you please focus only on the corresponding figure. Corresponding figure means it is also a comparative information related to the prior period. But here auditor is not doing the audit of the corresponding figure. Whereas in comparative financial statement, that is also a comparative information whereby auditor is doing the audit of such comparative financial statement. Now, many students don't know that comparative financial statement, that is the second part of this standard, is not at all applied in India. In India, we follow a corresponding figure approach whereby along with the current period financial statement, you are also given with the prior period financial statement. That is the thing you need to highlight it actually here. I hope everybody is clear, everybody is understanding actually here as far as the SA 710 is concerned. SA 710 is revolving around corresponding figure and comparative financial statement. Focus more only on the corresponding figure. Okay. In India, when we are doing audit of financial statement, we are doing only current period audit. We are not doing audit of the prior period. When we do audit of prior period, that becomes comparative financial statement, which is followed in US, UK. This should not be included here. Then another change which has brought in is 720 other information. Other information also they are asking question. Other information is nothing but these are the information included in the annual report of the company. They give the details about the board of directors report, chairman's speech, or like say management discussion analysis, corporate governance report, corporate social responsibility report. Whatever you are including in the financial statement, it will fall under other information. But the financial statement and audit report is also included in the annual report. That will not be another information. What this standard is telling is that you compare the financial statement with the other information. For example, board of directors will tell that this year the net profit of the company is 3%. But when you go and check the financials, my dear soldiers, it is not 3%. It is like say around say 2%. So there is a inconsistency between them. That inconsistency you have to resolve by way of looking at the other information. Okay, that is this standard. Okay, so now they are telling that the standard setters are telling that don't only look at the financial statement, but what is the other information which is going in the annual report to the shareholders. First, when you start preparing, start with this 6 standard. Okay, that is the first series. So start with the 700 series standard when you prepare. Then, my dear soldiers, go to 600 series standard. So you have to go from reverse, my dear soldiers, reverse to be done actually here. 600 series standard along with some SA 220 and 299, you should read it. These are all very important standards. See, this cluster of standard, basically we use the work of other. For example, 600 we have other auditor like say branch auditor or an auditor of a subsidiary company. You're reading SA 600, please link with audit of consolidated financial statement. I repeat again, SA 600 you have linked with the chapter called audit of consolidated financial statement, because there what happens, sometimes the audit of subsidiary company is done by other auditor. There this standard will be relevant, SA 600. Then SA 610, when you're reading, you have to read along with the chapter internal audit, operational audit, and management audit. So see what happens actually in these standards. Suppose if you don't have time before the examination, in 600 series you just read how does a principal auditor evaluate the work of the other auditor. That's it. So suppose if you're a shortage of time, please focus on that more actually here. Similarly, how do you use the work of an internal auditor? How do you use, so because see all these things you're using the work, how do you use their work actually here? They will not ask you a question that what is an objective of internal audit. At this stage they will not ask you. They'll not ask you the definition of internal audit, off limits. One secret I'll tell you is that when you're reading standards and auditing, please focus more on the responsibility of auditor. If you have a time shortage, that is the one thing. Now, this SA 610 also, how do you evaluate the work of a internal auditor? You have to check the competence of the internal auditor. You have to check the organizational status of the internal auditor, the policies and procedures which affect the objectivity of the internal auditor. Those kind of things you have to highlight. Similarly, in SA 620 also, you have to, how do you evaluate the work of an expert? If you focus on these three areas of these three standard, what happens? Almost 80% of questions are asked on that. Of course, SA 620 you have to read along with SA 500 also, because SA 620 talks about auditors expert, but SA 500 talks about management expert. Okay, expert is a person who has got in-depth knowledge in any area other than accounts and auditing. So for example, lawyer, engineer, they're all expert. But many students, what happened, they don't understand that there's a concept of management expert which is discussed in SA 500. Okay, for example, a question is asked that the company appointed a lawyer to ascertain the provision for taxation. Now, company appointed a lawyer means it is a management expert. You have to give reference to SA 500. Students, what they do, they give reference to SA 620 and they lose out the marks. That you should not be doing it. Okay, so that is one thing you should interconnect. 600, 610, 620. How does an auditor evaluates the work of expert, internal auditor, other auditor? That you be thorough with that. That is the one thing. Generally, whenever I read a standard, first what is important in that standard, I read that. I don't start with the introduction paragraph, this paragraph. Not required, sir. Please, not required. So don't like say spend your time on things which are unnecessary actually here. Get into relevant reading, relevant learning actually here. What is relevant, you get into that actually. Of course, understand what it is. Then what is relevant, that you should be focusing on, which most of us are not doing it. That's the thing. SA 620, quality control for audit work, and SQC1. In quality control for audit work and SQC1, these two standards you should read it together. And these two standards talk about how do you use the work of a audit engagement team. Article assistant. Article assistant. See, in the first three standards we talk about other auditor, internal auditor, expert. Now, how do I use the work of an article assistant? We call it as an audit engagement team. My humble request, 220 SQC1, you should read it as one standard. Or you read only 220, no need to read SQC1. So then what is the difference? In SA 220, we talk about quality of an individual audit. A quality of an individual audit we discussed. But in SQC1, my dear soldiers, we talk about the quality of the entire audit firm. Entire audit firm. That's it. That's it. There's no difference. So many students, they break their head reading 220 first, then after 2 months they'll read SQC1. Not required. Just read 220 SQC1. Know that okay, it is talking about quality of the entire audit firm. If it is talking about individual audit, what is how do you maintain the quality? How do you maintain the quality? Yes, you have to perform the audit engagement as per professional standards, legal requirement, regulatory requirement, and you have to have a right kind of people, that is human resource. You need to comply with the ethical requirements of independence, integrity, confidentiality. That is how you will increase the quality of the audit work. So 220 is also very much important. Now, they are asking new types of question from 220. For example, you have engagement quality control reviewer, engagement partner. Now, engagement partner is another name for auditor. Okay, see, in 600 we talk about principal auditor. In 610 we talk about external auditor. In 620 we talk about only auditor. In 220 SQC1 we talk about engagement partner. Sir, who are these people? All of them are same, sir. All of them are same, but different names are used for auditor in different standard. That sometimes students fail to understand. They're thinking, okay, what is the difference between engagement partner and an external auditor? It is no difference, sir. Standard wise they've used the name. That is the one thing. So look into the responsibility of engagement partner, engagement quality control reviewer. So this is one thing actually. So only read 220. Don't waste time on SQC1. Know that SQC1 is on the same lines, but entire quality of the audit firm. That's the thing. 299 has been revised now. Here we look into the work of the other joint auditor. So here also focus on what is your responsibility as an auditor. One secret is that any standard you read, moment you see responsibility of auditor, what is his reporting responsibility? Because in examination they'll ask you a question, they'll give you a case study and say, okay, what is the responsibility of an auditor? As an auditor, for example, in SA 250, what is the reporting responsibility in relation to non-compliance of laws and regulation? What is the responsibility of auditor under SA 240 when there is a fraud? So get into the action, get into the animation, my dear soldiers. When it comes to standards on auditing, responsibility of auditor is non-negotiable. You at least read that paragraph, my dear soldiers, without missing out. Actually, that is the thing. Okay, that is a secret you should carry. When it comes to SA 299 also, we talk about the responsibility of the joint auditor, where the areas are divided, where the areas are not divided. There you should be focusing, my dear soldiers. Okay, that's the thing here. Then once you are through with this, actually, then you also have SA 402, audit consideration related to entities using service organization. Very, very important standard. What happens when an entity will outsource their operation to a third party? Third party is known as service organization. So you are the auditor of the user entity. How will you do the audit when the user entity will outsource their operation? Accounting operation they will outsource. Say for example, one company will outsource their receivable payable to a BPO company like Accenture. How will you do the audit in that case? You are not going to audit of Accenture, but you have to see the contracts between the Accenture and this particular company. So 402 is also important. Focus on type 1 report, focus on type 2 report. What are these report? Type 1 report talks about the design efficiency of the internal control. Type 2 report talks about design efficiency and operating effectiveness of the internal control. So, and also SA 402 is very much important because say for example outsourcing has happened. As an auditor, what will you do? So as an auditor, what will you do? That is an important thing. As an auditor, you have to understand the nature of services which are processed by the service organization. What is the nature of services provided by the service organization, and what is the nature of transaction which are dealt by them? What is the nature of interaction between them? What is the nature of relationship between the service organization and the user entity? Those things will come into picture. Okay, so this is a second slot. You should keep it, my dear soldiers. Then when you're reading standards on auditing, turn to 500 series standard. In 500 series standard, SA 500 audit evidence focus on the different types of the audit procedures: inquiry, inspection, observation, analytical procedures. So these questions will come. And second part, which is very much important, is the questions on management expert, which will come from SA 500. So when you're reading SA 500, please tag along SA 620, link it, and please read it. That is the one thing. And SA 501, very, very important. 501 has got three parts: physical count of inventory, then it also has what claims and litigation and segment reporting. My humble request is that focus more on the physical count of inventory. Other two areas till now they have not asked any question. Just go through that. Physical count of inventory. As an auditor, what will you do if you are not able to do physical count of inventory? See, again I'm telling that as an auditor, what you are going to do? How will you deal with this? So that is the narrative examiner is looking at actually here. Okay, see, he is putting you in every situation where you are a qualified CA, and as a qualified CA, what will you do? For example, the inventory is located in a very difficult area, like say border areas, or the inventory is hazardous in nature. How will you deal with it? Or suppose the inventory is lying with a third party, what will you do in that situation actually here? So you have to see the instructions given by the management, you have to see the procedures followed by the management, you have to see the final inventory record. Those things you should focus. 501, even though there are three parts, focus more on inventory. 505, external confirmation. External confirmation, this one area, my dear soldiers, have a knowledge of what is a positive confirmation request, negative confirmation request. See, auditor first will ask the client that can I obtain a confirmation? Then auditor will send a confirmation request to the confirming party, which could be trade receivable, trade payable, banker, lender, borrower. So I will send a confirmation request. Confirmation requests are of two types: positive confirmation request, negative confirmation request. Having a good knowledge of this is very much important. So 505 is also a favorite child. And what are the what are the parameters auditor will follow while designing a confirmation request? What you should do? Of course, they will not ask you what is PCR, what is positive confirmation request, negative confirmation request. Don't waste your time on definition. They are not going to ask you. But what they are going to ask you that as an auditor, what will you do? So suppose say the confirmation, the client tells that don't obtain confirmation. As an auditor, what will you do? Once you start visualizing this, standards on auditing will become very simple, very easy actually here. That is the thing here. Okay. This I'm telling you purely from the examination approach point of view, but from practice point of view, yes, everything is important. But examination point of view, that is where you have to focus. Okay. So as an auditor, how will you design a confirmation request? As an auditor, what will you do if the confirmation, if the client tells that don't obtain confirmation request? Then coming up to 510, my dear soldiers, initial audit engagement, opening balances. This is a cakewalk. I mean, this standard, they have asked maximum questions in examination. And what happens as a student, what we do, we start giving more weightage to 200, then 300. And we reach at the end of the standard, we just rush through the other standard. That's the problem. That we should not be doing it actually here. In 501, generally, as an auditor, how will you verify the opening balances? How will you check that? So you have to check that whether the closing balance of the prior period are properly carried forward as a opening balance. We have to obtain a SAI, that is sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, that whether any opening balances are materially misstated, whether accounting policies are consistently applied. So 6-7 points you know in this, more than sufficient, my dear soldiers, as far as the initial audit engagement opening balances are concerned. So as an auditor, what will you do when you check the opening balances? SA 520, analytical procedures. Analytical procedures, don't waste your time on definitions, that what is an analytical procedures, what are the examples of analytical procedures. Straight away they will ask that, okay, as an auditor, how will you use a substantive analytical procedures? How are you going to utilize it? How are you going to use it actually here? So you're going to be judged based on the substantive analytical procedures. Now substantive analytical procedures, my dear soldiers, what happens is that as an auditor, first of all, we have to see the what is the usefulness of the analytical procedure, whether I can apply a analytical procedure or not. That as an auditor I need to check. So for example, say I want to ascertain the ownership of a building. There I cannot apply analytical procedure, but for the purpose of valuation of the building, whether value is correct or not, there I can apply analytical procedures. Okay, so this is another important pointer actually here. Analytical procedure, they also ask that how do you, because what happens, whatever analytical procedure you're applying, the data should be reliable. What is the source of data? Whether that source of data is reliable or not, that you need to be checking actually here. Okay, that's the thing. Coming up to sampling, audit sampling. In audit sampling, it has got various areas. For example, approaches of sampling, statistical approach, non-statistical approach, very, very important. So approaches of sampling, is it statistical approach, non-statistical approach? That is the first one you should give a very high weightage into, statistical approach and a non-statistical approach. When I talk about statistical approach, my dear soldiers, there I use a random selection technique. There I use the probability theory, the mathematical law, calculation, all those things I'll be using it here. When it comes to a non-statistical approach, my dear soldiers, a non-statistical approach will be using the more of the judgment of the auditor, more judgment and more of the experience of the auditor. So first, be thorough with the statistical and non-statistical approach. Secondly, focus on sample size, sample design, and selection of item. So there are 6 parts in SA 530, but 2 parts only you should focus. One is what is the approach in the sampling, which approach should you use, statistical or non-statistical. And second part, my dear soldiers, is you're going to use what they say, what is the sample size, sample design, and lastly, my dear soldiers, the coming to how the samples are being selected. When I say sample design is one thing. When we talk about the sample design, my dear soldiers, so how do you design a sample? Actually, sample design is all about quality of sample, and sample size depends upon the sampling risk. So if the risk is high, if the risk is very high, then you need to increase the sample size so that you can reduce the sampling risk. And lastly, selection of sample, you have random selection technique, systematic selection technique, then stratified selection technique, block sampling. So you should know this. If these areas you're thorough, nothing like that. Coming up to SA 540, auditing accounting estimates, fair value accounting estimates, and related disclosure. See, accounting estimates here, Accounting estimates is nothing but provisions and contingent liability. Another word for them is accounting estimates. So accounting estimates, first of all, accounting estimates having high estimation uncertainty and accounting estimates having low estimation uncertainty. So they may ask you a question on this actually here. See, for example, where data is not available, so data is not fairly available, where the calculation is very complex in nature. For example, in case of ESOPs, so there you will have high estimation uncertainty. And accounting estimates, my dear soldiers, having low estimation uncertainty. For example, say the provisions which you do it regularly, for example, like say salary payable or rent payable, where the business is not all complex, where data is very simple. So there they will raise a question. In case of accounting estimates, they will as a part called risk assessment procedure. Risk assessment procedure. So what is the procedures you will apply? For example, whether the assumptions made by the management are realistic in nature, whether the calculations are correct, whether the methods and model used by the management for accounting estimates are they proper. There you should be focusing as an auditor. Coming up to SA 550, related party, two things are important. One, as an auditor, what are the documents you will check for related party to ascertain the related party transaction and related party relationship? What are the documents you will check, like income tax returns, agreements, contracts? So those things you have to highlight. Second thing, what they'll ask actually here, that so what are the transactions? Suppose say there is a contract which is outside the normal course of business. In case of related party, how will you deal with that? So in such case, when there is a related party transaction, you will try to understand the business rationale of the transaction, why they have entered into a transaction with the related party. See, for example, the client is dealing in automobile part and related party is dealing with a textile part. There is no link, there is no connection. So what is the business rationale of the transaction entered with the related party? That you need to ascertain that. Second one, whether the transactions are recorded as per applicable FRF, whether the disclosure of related party is being done. Then they'll ask you the examples of transaction which are outside the normal course of business. For example, sales made to related party with high amount of discounts, or sales made with repurchase, like doing a circular transaction, or price variation given to related party. So see, if the transaction with the related party is not on an arm's length basis, then it is a fraud risk. So there we'll be focusing. Coming up to SA 560, subsequent events. Subsequent events now, my dear soldiers, subsequent events, what they talk about actually, that two types of events, adjusting events and non-adjusting events. You don't have to know what are these, like say definition wise, as I told you, not required actually here. But subsequent events, my dear soldiers, as an auditor, how will you check that? So this, as an auditor, for example, you will see the minutes of the meeting of the board of directors. You will see the subsequent interim financial statement. You will inquire with the management. You will inquire with the TCWG. So you will do inquiry. You will inquire whether any asset has been destroyed. You will inquire whether the assets have been taken over by the government. Those areas you will be focusing on. That's the thing. So coming up to 570, very important standard, going concern. Going concern, my dear, sometimes several questions are asked on going concern. This is also a thing. Going concern, again, as I told you, yes, responsibility of auditor is very much important. As an auditor, what is the procedure you're going to apply? For example, auditor will evaluate the management use of going concern assumption in the preparation of financial statement. Whether management has done an assessment of going concern assumption. If they have not done, request the management that you need to do the assessment of the going concern assumption. Okay, that is the thing. And three indicators, that is, what are the financial indicators of going concern, affecting going concern, what are the operational indicators, and what are the other indicators. There, my dear soldiers, the focus and weightage will be as far as the SA 570 going concern is concerned. That is the thing. Then coming up to SA 580, we talk about what, my dear soldiers, the written representation. Again, important standard altogether. See, when you don't get proper audit evidence, you go for written representation. And almost several times they have asked a question that, suppose say management is not providing a written representation, what will you do as an auditor? If they are not providing my written representation, then in such case, I will go into that integrity of the management. I will check. I will try to ascertain the reason, inquire with the management that why are you not giving a written representation? A written representation is a statement made by management to the client. That's the thing here. So it is a statement made by the management to the auditor to ascertain some matters, to support certain audit evidences. When audit evidence are not sufficient, we go for written representation. Written representation is also a type of audit evidence, but it is never a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. It is a normal audit evidence that you should know. Okay, but most of the times the questions are revolving around, if suppose say written representation is not provided as an auditor, what will you do? So you will check the integrity of the management and you will discuss with the management that why are you not providing the written representation, what is the impact on your audit report. You will try to ascertain that. Then SA 450, evaluation of misstatement identified during the audit. One question which comes here, again I'm telling you, don't waste your time on definition. One question which is asked here, my dear soldiers, is that in case of a misstatement, suppose say there is a misstatement and the misstatement is uncorrected. See, misstatement means something is wrong. As an auditor, you will go and tell the management that there is a misstatement in the financial statement. So they will rectify, no issue. If they don't rectify, it becomes uncorrected misstatement. Uncorrected misstatement, whether it is material or not material. If it is material, then there will be an impact on your audit report. You may end up giving a modified report as per SA 705. So I repeat again, first as an auditor, you identify misstatement. Is it material? You request the management to correct the misstatement. If they don't correct it, what will you do as an auditor? It becomes a uncorrected misstatement. Whether uncorrected misstatement is material, that you have to focus. And another question which is often asked here is that why misstatement arise? What is the reason for misstatement? That is also a question. For example, there may be incorrect processing of data. There may be a possibility of incorrect processing of data that can also happen actually here. Okay, so this is all about the SA 450. Then going forward, my dear soldiers, 300 series standard. In 300 series standard, my dear soldiers, planning. Now planning, what happens? 4 stages are there for planning. That is preliminary engagement activity, overall audit strategy, audit planning and audit program. So preliminary engagement activity means whether I should take up the audit or not. And coming up to what, my dear soldiers, coming up to the aspect of overall audit strategy. Overall audit strategy talks about scope, timing and direction of audit. Scope, timing and direction of audit. So overall audit strategy, very, very important for examination. Focus on that. Preliminary engagement activity, they have never asked. Similarly, audit planning, the third stage actually here, that is also important. But overall audit strategy is very, very important. When students, they ask a question that, sir, overall audit strategy and audit planning, what is the difference? One simple way I will tell you, overall audit strategy is very brief, audit planning is very detailed. So what factors you will consider for drafting a plan? For example, you will understand the applicable financial reporting framework, materiality level, using the work of internal auditor, other auditor, related party transaction. So you have to highlight that. Okay. So please focus on this standard on overall audit strategy and audit planning. Audit program also you can just go through once. Then SA 315, identifying and assessing risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. Please understand, we are in a risk-based audit. Risk-based audit chapter. So what is a risk-based audit? You should be thorough with it. Risk means problem. Wherever there is more problem, you will apply more audit procedures in that particular area. That is what we understand by the risk-based audit. Okay, that's the thing. So you as an auditor, you will identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, means problem. You will find out the problem. See, earlier how we were doing audit in 1980s, we were doing line based audit. Every line item we were checking. Today in 2020, 2021, we are doing audit on risk based audit. Risk based audit means what, my dear soldiers? Wherever the risk is high, wherever the problems are high, you will apply more audit procedure. That's the thing here. Now in this standard SA 315, First of all, there are 5 parts to it actually here. You have control activity. Control activity, they don't ask much question. Risk assessment procedure, they ask question on risk assessment procedure. Significant risks. Risk assessment procedure means procedure by which you find out the risk, that is problem in the organization. For example, inventory getting overvalued, or inventory getting stolen, cash being misused, accounting standard misapplied. These are all risks. So you as an auditor, you have to identify the risk in the areas. So second part, first part, control activity. So just go through risk assessment procedure. Very important actually. Very important. Third part, information technology. For example, what are the risks in information technology? Very important. For example, data may be manipulated, data may be misused, program may be modified, system may be modified. Very important. And then monitoring, not so important, but the control environment is very important. So in this standard 315, risk assessment procedure, you focus. Second thing what you have to focus is information technology and control. And third one is the control environment, whether the people working in the organization are honest, are ethical in nature. That's the thing. 320 talks about materiality. It's a very straightforward standard. Okay. First of all, as an auditor, how will you fix a benchmark? Benchmark means a percentage what you apply on some account to arrive at materiality. Materiality means what is important. What is important is considered as materiality. So because as an auditor, I can't check everything. I have to focus only on the material item. So how do you fix materiality is this standard all about. How do you fix the materiality level as an auditor? So you have to apply a percentage on the benchmark. Benchmark means it could be turnover, it could be asset. You will take 1% of turnover as material. So benchmark question is very important. And another thing, my dear soldiers, in SA 320, you should focus that can I revise the materiality level? For example, I fix the materiality level as 5 crores. It means what? Anything below 5 crore, I will not check. Anything above 5 crores, I will check. But can I revise the materiality level? Yes. If there are new developments, new changes, you can always do the revision. So you can revise the materiality level from 5 crores to 3 crores. That you can do it. Okay. Then SA 330, auditors' responses to assessed risk. In this standard, my dear soldiers, we talk about another audit procedure, that is further audit procedures. See, when you're reading 315, 315 talks about risk assessment procedure. And 330, my dear soldiers, it talks about what, my dear soldiers? The further audit procedure. When I say further audit procedures, my dear soldiers, further audit procedures are of 2 types, my dear soldiers. That is test of control, and it also talks about what, my dear soldiers? The other part, one is the test of control and the second one is the substantive procedure. Okay. So 315 and 330, these are the 2 weapons of the auditor. That is why they are interlinked standard. When you're reading 315, immediately you read 330. See, in 315, I found out ROM, risk of material misstatement, means problem. Once I find out the problem, what should I do? I should go to 330, where the nature, extent, timing of further audit procedure depends upon 315. So 315, 330, actually it was a one standard. They divided into parts. Okay. So my humble request, read these 2 standards together actually here. Okay. That's the thing. Then coming up to 200 series standard, 200 series standard basic, my dear soldiers, very much basic actually here, but students, they neglect 260 and 265. That is communication with those charged with governance. When does an auditor communicate with those charged with governance? So he communicates when there is a difficulty created in audit, when there is a fraud, when management is involved in fraud. So 260, 265, you don't learn in your CA intermediate. It is not there for your syllabus. So students tend to neglect this also. Don't do it. Coming to mother standard SA 200. In SA 200, definitely it's a foundation for all the standards on auditing. But this you would have read many times actually, because you will start with the standard on SA 200. In SA 200, please focus on the topic inherent limitations on audit. Why does an audit fail? Audit risk cannot be reduced to 0. So there are inherent limitations in audit because of nature of financial reporting, nature of audit procedure. So one part which is very important is inherent limitations of audit. Then when I talk about ROM, that is risk of material misstatement, ROM is at 2 levels: financial statement level and assertion level. I repeat again, ROM is at two level, financial statement level and assertion level. Financial state. So when I talk about the financial statement level, my dear soldiers, financial statement level is all about what, my dear soldiers, is that. So they talk about the financial statement level means when the problem affects the entire financial statement. And ROM at assertion level means when it affects a particular account, when problem affects a particular account. See, ROM means risk of material misstatement, which is nothing but problem. Okay. So now when I talk about ROM, ROM can affect the entire financial statement. Example, you will have an incompetent accountant who is not having experience, and he will not be a good accountant. So entire accounts will get botched up. It will go wrong. Then you have ROM at assertion level, my dear soldiers. ROM at assertion level means when it is affecting a particular account. Say it is affecting inventory, it is affecting fixed assets. So in SA 200, focus on inherent limitations on audit, and ROM, risk of material misstatement at financial statement level, and risk of material misstatement at assertion level. These are the areas of focus. Of course, audit risk is made of three types of risk: inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk. So they are asking application based question. They have asked question on this formula itself. See, for example, inherent risk is something which is an unavoidable problem. Control risk is what? It's an avoidable problem. It's a solvable problem. The internal controls are not functioning properly. That is why you have control risk. Detection risk is purely the work of the auditor, because auditor is incompetent. That is why detection risk is coming. So audit risk is made of three risks: inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk. So inherent risk meaning is definition is susceptibility of an assertion. It'll start with the definition, but you have to understand that it's an unavoidable problem. You can't do anything about it. Control risk is a solvable problem, and detection risk is a problem created by the auditor. Sir, how does an auditor creates a problem? Example, auditor is not applying proper audit procedures. There this challenges comes. SA 210, agreeing to the terms of audit engagement. I was really surprised that looking at latest RTP, they have asked several questions on SA 210. See, example, they will tell that they'll give a case study and they'll tell that the auditor has given this contents in the engagement letter. He has given the content as scope of audit, objective of audit, responsibility of management. Then he has given the form and content of audit report, like that. What is the one item which is missing? One item which is missing is responsibility of the auditor in the engagement letter. So maybe they are coming up with some questions there also. So SA 210, my dear soldiers, focus on when should I issue an engagement letter in case of a recurring audit or repetitive audit. Second thing, what are the contents of an engagement letter? And most important thing is that can I revise an engagement letter, audit engagement letter, after I commence the audit? The question will be that if you if you lower the level of assurance, what is going to happen? So that is SA 210 is all about. Coming up to SA 230, my dear soldiers, audit documentation. Not much questions are being asked. Only two questions they have asked is that what are the factors for determining the nature, extent, and content of audit documentation? I repeat, what are the factors for determining the nature, extent, and content of audit documentation? What should be there in the audit documentation? Second thing, my dear soldiers, they ask about the ownership. Who is the owner of audit documentation? It is the auditor. Now they will confuse you. For example, there is a principal auditor is going to branch. Is he a owner of the branch auditor's working paper? Answer is no. So ownership of audit documentation and the form, content, and extent of audit documentation, these are the two favorite questions. As I told you, keep your eyes open for what you can say numbers, because when you see numbers, it's an MCQ potential. Example, say audit documentation should be maintained for at least 7 years. That 7 years is important. Then audit documentation should be completed within 60 days of the closure of the audit. That 60 days is important. So please focus on the numbers. Moment you see numbers, keep a separate book for numbers only. For this topic, these are the numbers. That will help you a lot. It will be very handy when you do an MCQ solving, my dear soldiers. And most of the questions I see in MCQ are revolving around numbers. Maybe you can say 50% of the question, and 50% may be some technical based. That's how it is. Okay. Then coming up to SA 240, blindly read responsibility of auditor here. That's it. Don't waste your time on what is fraudulent financial reporting, what is misappropriation of asset. That is more of a CA inter-level question. Straight away focus on, as an auditor, how will you deal with the fraud? The auditor has a reasonable assurance that whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement due to fraud or error. Straight away focus on the responsibility of auditor in relation to fraud. Okay, that is the one thing. In 250 also, straight away go to responsibility of auditor. When there is a non-compliance of law, what are the reporting responsibility of auditor? Okay, so it becomes very easy, and you know where to focus, what to focus. If you focus on relevant things, my dear soldiers, that is more than sufficient. Okay, that is the thing for standards on auditing. 260, 265, I already told you that these two entire standard are dealing with communication. Entire standards are important, my dear soldiers. As far as when does an auditor communicate? When there is a difficulty created by the management, not giving any information, not providing access to books and records, or not giving access to passwords. So those kind of things you have to highlight it actually here. Okay. So this is a run through for the standards on auditing, how you should prepare and what you should be focusing on. Sir, can I write my own answers? No, sir. You have to write the answer as per the standard. Sir, exactly I cannot write. No problem. At least, at least 80% of your answer, at least 80% of your answer should match with the standard, my dear. At least 80% of your answer should match, more than sufficient, my dear. So keywords, if you match it, more than sufficient. Okay, that's the thing here. Then in company audit chapters, this is a fairly easy topic for students. Students find this area very, very comfortable actually here. In audit of limited company, first of all, certain sections are very, very important, very, very important. For example, section 143 of Companies Act, which talks about duties and responsibilities of auditor, rights and duties of auditor, very, very important. In section 143 also you have CARO. Now, sir, CARO 2020 should we read? Because in study mat of ICI, they have given CARO 2020. But what has happened? There is an anti-climax which has happened. MCA issued a notification recently that CARO 2020 we are deferring to the next year. What shall we do? Now, there's no official announcement by ICI, but in these matters, based on my experience, CARO 16 only will be made applicable. Okay. So, sir, what shall we do? This is your opinion, but what is ICI opinion? In my view, you please keep reading CARO 16, 2016, and let us wait for the ICI announcement, which will happen shortly, maybe in the coming month actually here, because CARO 2020 is an expansion of CARO 16. So you read CARO 16, my dear soldiers, that's the thing. And because in CARO 2020, they have added some extra clauses, that's it. So whatever you read in CARO 16 will definitely carry it forward for CARO 2020 also. That's the thing. In my experience, definitely Board of Studies should come with a notification that CARO 2020 also should be deferred. How can you apply something which is not made applicable now for the students? Students are not having any practical exposure towards that. So it should not be made applicable according to me. But on a safer side, read only CARO 16 and wait for the announcement. But the challenge here, what confusion they have caused is that because in May 21 material, they have given CARO 2020. That is a challenge many students are facing actually here. But you don't have to worry. They'll come with the announcements. But for time being, be on a safer side, because CARO 16, you read it. That is the one thing actually. Okay. So section 143 is very, very important in the Companies Act. Then section 141, eligibility, qualification, disqualification of auditor. That is also very much important. So 143, 141, you read it thoroughly. Whereas 139, 140, 139 appointment of auditor, 140 resignation of auditor, 147 fines and penalty. These sections you please read from the MCQ point of view. Numbers, within how many days first auditor to be appointed. So the numbers point of view, it will be relevant for you. Okay. But 141 and 143 will be more of a application driven. Similarly, section 148 will be more of an MCQ driven. So MCQ driven means it reduces your pressure. So you can just write down, for example, what are the forms? What are the forms you have? CRA1, CRA2. CRA1 talks about the cost accounting record. CRA2 about the appointment of the cost auditor, intimation should be given to ROC. CRA3 is about cost audit report. So those forms, again, it will be an MCQ potential. Okay. 141, 143 is non-negotiable. Be thorough with these two sections. Coming to audit reports, I've already told you about the 700 series standard. So this I will not take it up again. Audit committee and corporate governance. Audit committee and corporate governance of late now they're asking application based question. For example, they're asking question from risk management committee, then asking question from nomination and remuneration committee. They are asking question from areas which they were not asking earlier. Okay, so they're asking. See, this is a topic related to listed company, and now they're coming out with more and more new types of questions. So here you need to make a table. See, ultimately there are various committees. Audit committee is there, then nomination and remuneration committee is there, stakeholders relationship committee is there, okay, risk management committee is there. So you have to make a table. Okay, this committee, how many members will be there, who will be the chairman, who can be a chairman, what is their duty. Just you make a table, more than sufficient. Further, in audit committee and corporate governance, also more weightage you should give it on audit committee. What is the role of an audit committee? What is the composition of an audit committee? What is the composition of the board of directors? How many independent directors? How many executive directors? Those kind of things you should focus. And again, it's a number based MCQ potential. Okay. Then audit of consolidated financial statement. I told you earlier that direct question like say current period consolidation adjustment or a permanent consolidation adjustment, they may ask you direct question from these chapters. At the same time, there may be an application based question. Example, a company is holding investment in a subsidiary as a current asset. What will you do? Whether consolidation will be done or not? As per AS 21, no. As per Ind AS, yes. Like that, you have to be very clear with some practical example. In audit of consolidation financial statement, focus on the reporting responsibility of the auditor. So this you get in your mind, responsibility of auditor, things becomes easy. See, section 143 of Companies Act also talks about responsibility of auditor. This bigger picture you should get actually, that's a thing. Then coming up to professional ethics chapter like professional ethics, peer review, quality review, liability of auditor. What happens? Ethics, my dear soldiers, certain clauses are non-negotiable. Means you have to be thorough with those clauses actually here. And repeatedly they keep asking question from that clauses. For example, clause 2, clause 6, clause 7, clause 8, clause 9, 10, 11, 12 of the part 1 of the first schedule, very, very important, non-negotiable. I repeat again, clause 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of part 1 of first schedule, very, very important clauses actually here. I don't say that don't read other clauses also you read it, but these clauses carry a lot of weightage in the examination. Similarly, coming up to the second schedule, in second schedule, my dear soldiers, what happens actually, the clause 1 to say 8, 1 to 8 of part 1 of second schedule, very important, 1 to 8, and then even clause 10 of part 1 of second schedule is very important. And also, my dear soldiers, Council General Guidelines of 2008. Many students, they don't read what is Council General Guidelines of 2008. Example, how many tax audit they can hold, whether the auditor should maintain books and account. Yes, he has to maintain cash book and ledger. Those things students neglect. So Council General Guidelines of 2008, very, very important. Okay. So like that. So focus on high weightage areas. That's a thing. Peer review, quality review, direct questions will be asked. So that is makes the chapter easy. Even liabilities of auditor, liability under Companies Act, liability under Income Tax Act, again they ask direct question from this chapter. Okay, quality review of course not applicable for the old syllabus, don't read it. So peer review, quality review, liability of auditor, very, very simple. Many students, they get confused, sir, what is the difference between peer review and quality review? Peer review, quality review, the work of a CA is checked by another CA appointed by the peer review board or quality review board of ICI. So, sir, when the work of CA is checked by another CA, what is the difference? In peer review is very detailed. It will not only check the audit, it will not only check the working papers, it will also check the office administration training. So it will get into the entire audit setup, office setup, That is peer review. Are you giving proper training to your staff? Are you conveying about the independence policy? Peer review is nothing but work of one CA is checked by another CA, but you will get into entire audit office setup. Whereas quality review will focus only on the statutory audit of a company. I repeat, statutory audit of one company. So you are an auditor of that company, you have done a statutory audit, one that company financials they'll take up and they'll do quality review. Quality review is very focused only on the stat audit of a company. That's it. Whereas peer review is focusing on all types of audit, or internal audit, operational audit, management, all types of audit it is covering. Tax audit, stat audit. And peer review will focus on non-financial areas also, like say office administration, how you have arranged the file, how are you giving training to articles, are they updating their work diary. So peer review is more detailed. Quality review is only on the stat audit. You check the work on the stat audit of the auditor. Okay, that's the thing. Now, bank, insurance, and NBFC, my humble request is that please focus on the past examination question. These are all fairly direct chapters. All fairly direct chapters actually, so more weightage you should give it to the examination question. Here, the creativity of the examiner, sometimes what happens is revolving only around the repeated past questions. That is, my dear soldiers, more than sufficient. But for MCQ, the numbers you should be careful. Numbers you should be careful. If you're careful with the numbers, nothing like that. That's the thing. Insurance also same thing, and NBFC also same thing. NBFC now some changes have happened. For example, they have brought the investment credit company. In case of NBFC, they have brought that NBFC ICC, that there you have to focus. And they have also brought reporting responsibility, auditors reporting responsibility in case of NBFC. So NBFC small chapter, so we can always focus on that. That's the thing here. Okay. Then tax audit, highly application based. Tax audit and GST audit, audit under fiscal law. So sir, should we know the clauses number? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. It may be a potential MCQ question. So from clause 1 to 44, at least you should know. For this kind of thing, what you should do, you should make a list of all the 44 clauses and paste it on the wall of your house. And don't write the entire clauses, not required. Just write the keyword. For example, say clause number 11 talks about books of accounts. Books of account. One liner you can write down. Clause number 13 talks about method of accounting. Okay, then clause number 28 talks about the shares received at a inadequate consideration. One keywords you write and keep it actually here. Clause 16 very very important. Clause 21 very important for tax audit of 3CD. So 3CD is a major area they will focus on. 3CA, 3CB, no, 3CD of tax audit is very much important. Okay. So what you should do, make a list and paste it on the wall of your house. So every day you look into the clauses. That is how it is actually here. That is how you keep remembering, okay, this is the clause number. So of course it can be an MCQ question also. In 3CD, certain clauses are very important, like say clause 4 is important, clause 8 is important, clause 11 is important, 12 is important, 13 is important, 14 is important. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 is important. Clause 17, which talks about the transfer of immovable property for inadequate consideration, is important. Clause 21, items which are debited to P&L are important, like that. And similarly, some clauses like say 28, 29, clause 31, which talks about loans accepted are repaid. So those clauses are important actually here. And similarly, clause 37 on cost audit is important. Clause 40, accounting ratio, is important. Certain clauses are non-negotiable and very very important. Okay. And coming up to GST audit, my humble request, GSTR like say 9C, GSTR 9C, in that you have to focus on clause 5, which is on the supply. Clause 5 deals with supply. Clause 7 also deals with supply. And clause 12, input tax credit. So clause 5, 7 and 12, very very important. So in GST audit, focus on two areas thoroughly. One is the supply, that is turnover. And second one, my dear soldiers, is the ITC. See, GST audit revolves around four things. What is a turnover declared, taxes paid, refund claimed, and last one ITC claimed. So they are not interested in what is the taxation rate. Don't waste your time on that. How much the taxation rate is going to be, whether it is going to be 5%, 12%. They will not ask such question. It will be off limits. Similarly, taxes paid. What is the taxes paid is over, and also, but they'll be focusing more on what, my dear soldiers, the revenue which is declared, the turnover declared, and the ITC. These two areas are the major focus on GST audit. Accordingly, focus on that. Okay, that's a thing. Then balance topics like, say, audit of PSU, internal audit, management audit, operational audit, due diligence, investigation, audit under automated environment. Advantage of audit of PSU and audit of under automated environment, these are all small chapters. I always tell students, also read those chapters first where the content is less but written is more. PSU audit is very small chapter, talks about the different types of audit for PSU, comprehensive audit, performance audit. It talks about different types of audit for public sector undertaking, that is nothing but the government entity. You have performance audit, proprietary audit. Those areas you should be focusing on when it comes to the audit of PSU. Audit of PSU will revolve more around that particular area. Okay, that's the thing. These are all small chapters which you should immediately finish off. And at the end, audit under automated environment is also very small chapter actually here, but we keep it at the end. So small chapter also keeping at the end, not preparing, will not make any sense, my dear soldiers. Imagine 5 marks comes from this chapter. Why should we lose out? In audit under automated environment, the general IT control and application controls. General IT controls, like, say, you have data center controls are there. Then you also have program change controls. Then you have data analytics. So those are, like, say, direct question will be asked. So why don't we focus on these topics, my dear soldiers? Coming up to internal audit, management audit, and operational audit. Here there can be a mix of application question or direct question. So internal audit, management audit, operational audit. So internal audit, basically we link with SA 610 and read it. What are the factors you consider while relying upon the work of a internal auditor? Link with section 138 of the Companies Act. Okay. And coming up to management audit and operational audit, management audit is the audit of the top management, whereas operational audit is audit at the entry level. For example, entry level employees. For example, how is the manufacturing process? How are the workers working? Management audit is at the top level, the audit of the management decision making. Okay, so these are all fair topics which you are not exposed to. We are not having a practical exposure. So that is why sometimes it becomes challenging. But again, examination related questions, you can read it. So they'll not do much, what you can say, questions which will be, like, say, confusing the students. That kind of things will not happen. Similarly, due diligence, investigation, and forensic audit also are important topics actually here. See, in investigation, understand that investigation done is 100% check, whereas audit is based on sample. The difference you should know. So investigation when there is a fraud committed, investigation on behalf of the bank, investigation on behalf of the incoming partner. Then due diligence when one company wants to acquire the other company, should I purchase that company or not? So due diligence, my dear soldiers, is covered whenever there is a M&A transaction, mergers and acquisition. There'll be due diligence. The due diligence consultant will tell, should I should I invest in the company or not? That is due diligence. Due diligence, my dear soldiers, be thorough with the contents of the due diligence report. That is one thing. And most important thing, what are the overvalued assets, hidden liability? See, entire chapter of due diligence, investigation, and forensic audit is on two pillars. Either the assets may be overvalued or there may be some hidden liability. Liability may not be disclosed. Forensic audit, students suddenly get a heart attack. Sir, what is forensic audit? Nothing. This is also a investigation, 100% check. But what is the difference here is that you take the evidence to the court of law. That's it. You appear before the judge. The judge will tell forensic audit to be done, and you will go and appear in the court of law and talk about the financial crime which has been committed in the company. See, somebody is accusing the directors that they are doing fraud. Court will say, okay, do a forensic audit and submit a report to us. So forensic audit is nothing but investigation only. But only one difference is that you appear in the court of law. This chapter, what are the different forensic audit techniques? You have to be thorough with that. Okay, that this is all small bit chapters which you can finish off, my dear soldiers. Okay, that's the thing. So my dear soldiers, these are all the topic wise approach I have given you actually here. So topic wise, how you should approach in the examination, I've highlighted that to you. How do we learn, plan and move forward? First of all, how do you read auditing? You have to apply the law of 30 and 10. Sir, what is 30 and 10? 30 and 10 means you should read a topic for 30 minutes, close the book and write down for 10 minutes. Many of you will have a problem of remembering the points actually like that. So you will forget the points. Please don't do that actually here. Some people have a habit of only reading. Then they will say, okay, over. No, don't do that. You have to put a break after every 30 minutes, close the book and scribble. I used to scribble on the newspapers and I used to keep scribbling actually here like that, keep scribbling. So the writing is learning like 10 times. Writing should be there. So that you have to inculcate in your auditing approach. The law of 30 and 10. That is a thing. Second one, law of affirmation. In law of affirmation, what happens? You have to read it slowly and you have to read it little loudly when you're reading the subject. It is always a psychological advantage. What happens? Many students I see, they'll be keep on staring the book, keep on staring the book. That's it, over. So you have to, my dear soldiers, what happens? Read little loudly actually here. Not fully so much loudly, little loudly. Affirmation. What are you reading? Okay, as per the clause 5 of part 1 of the first schedule, the CA will be guilty of professional misconduct. As if you are self-teaching yourself. So you have to read it and again do an affirmation. That will have a very big advantage for you to remember the things, my dear soldiers. So law of affirmation, very important. And I've seen students that those who do a lot of affirmation, they definitely remember things in a better manner. Okay, 30-10, read then write for 10 minutes. And when you're reading, how do you read? You read it by affirmation. Okay, this is the thing. Read the paragraph. Okay, then look upwards and again try to repeat it. Actually, sir, are you telling us to by heart? Are you? It's not by hearting, my dear soldiers, but unfortunately what happens, I have to write the words, key words for the examination. I have to remember those points. I'll be very direct and straightforward here, that write the words which are required to be written in the examination and not your understanding. Understanding will be useful for MCQ. Okay, then law of relevance. I'm repeating this again and again. Please focus on what is relevant, what is important. Like for example, not wasting time on introduction, not wasting time on definition. Leave it to CA intermediate students. You should focus on what is relevant in this topic. And what happens, what is relevant, immediately you should first complete that. For example, there are 10 topics in a syllabus in a particular chapter. Out of 10 topics, 4 are very relevant. Complete that 4 topic first. Then other topics, you just go through them like a story. Remember that, okay, this is the pointer. That is what you should be doing it. I'm not asking you to skip. You read entire thing. But what is relevance, you should be focusing first. Other areas, okay, just run through. Like a story book, okay, read, this is the thing. That is law of relevance. And law of compounding. In law of compounding, what happens, my dear soldiers? You revise, you revise, you revise, you revise. When you keep doing revision, what happens, my dear soldiers, is that the revision compounds your learning. Students, what they do, once they complete auditing, they close the book and keep it aside. No, sir. When you do a second revision, third revision, the subject becomes more easier to you, my dear soldier. The problem is that we don't revise. Everything will become irrelevant if you don't follow the law of compounding, that is revising the subject again and again. That is why we tell that keep a small notebook for you. Actually, notes, separate handwritten notes should be there, key points should be there. Again, just check for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like that, so that revision reasserts the matter strongly in your mind. That's the thing here. So law of compounding will help us there, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. Then law of mindfulness. Are you studying with focused manner? When you decide that 2 hours I will give for this, are you doing that? So it's very, very important that you carry the focus with you while studying actually. So you should be focused on this particular topic only. I have a habit, whenever I open a like say Google or internet, first I will write down What am I going to check? What am I going to see in the net? I'm going to check a documentary. That's it. Because too much distraction is there in this world. And if you pass CA in these times, salam to you, my dear soldiers. So you have to be very clear that this is what I'm going to achieve. Hey, watch that video, watch this video. So we should not lack focus, my dear soldiers. So that's the thing here. So law of mindfulness, law of hustle. Hustle means hard work. Nothing replaces the hard work, my dear soldiers. This course is for hardworking people. Work hard, but work in a proper direction. Oh, as I told you about my student purchasing a guidance note on bank audit and wasting his time, that should not be there. You have to really work very hard out of the skin. And when you're in CA final, there's no doubt that you're a hardworking. I don't have to tell you, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. Yes, you have to sacrifice few parties. You have to sacrifice get together. You have to sacrifice few festival. I know that those challenges are there actually here. This side, somebody's bursting cracker, and you are putting your book down in the book. But yes, that hustle will take you forward, my dear soldiers. And law of digital minimalism. Basically, my dear soldiers, this mobile distraction, please keep it aside. And more you keep, stay away from those actually here, definitely it will be good. I don't have to tell you on this because every faculty will highlight about this actually here. But I'll tell you the first four laws are very, very important, my dear soldiers. It is at the, what's say, like say, basic level. When you're reading the subject, these four things you should follow. And 5, 6, 7 is all about your nature, is all about your behavior, how you conduct, how you respond to your environment. So that is one thing, my dear soldiers. Okay, that's a thing. So now MCQ, how do you address the MCQ questions? So MCQ, please keep a separate book for MCQ. Okay, small book, you keep it for MCQ. There I told you that first of all, number questions. So when you're reading a topic throughout, so some numbers are asked actually. What is the penalty, or what is the clause number 24 of 3CD is what actually here. So you have to have a separate book for MCQ, which is like say number question. There only number questions are being asked actually. Okay, within how many days an auditor should be appointed, how many members should be there in the audit committee, how many members should be there in SRC, stakeholders relationship committee. So number question, anything you related to number, be alert to that. Write down penalty. What is the penalty for this amount? Okay, that's the thing. Second one, application based MCQ. In application based MCQ, they'll give you a case study, and for that they'll say, okay, what is an option for that actually. That's the thing. Application based MCQ is all about this actually. So nowadays I see application based MCQ are all past examination questions they are picking up, and they're making an MCQ out of it actually. That's a thing. So that is one thing they are doing actually here. And what is this integrated MCQ? Integrated MCQ, again a case study, but the MCQ will be on 4 or 5 topics of auditing. For example, one case study I will give you, I'll ask question from GST audit, I'll ask question from tax audit, I'll ask question from company audit, I'll ask question from ethics. So he is revolving the pawn towards all direction, my dear soldiers. In application based MCQ, there'll be one topic. On that topic, there'll be direct MCQ. Okay, there'll be a practical case study. Whereas in integrated MCQ, what happens? There'll be one topic, but the questions will be based on 5 different chapters, 6 different chapters. So you have to be prepared for that. Patience is required while reading the question. You have to be very slow. Don't jump into the question straight away. So be slow when you're reading the MCQ question. That's a thing here. Okay. And because what happens, my dear soldiers, MCQ again, don't think that okay, because reading time will consume lot of time. So that is why from now onwards itself you should start solving MCQ question. A lot of RTP, MTP questions are there. Take those questions and start solving it, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. So a small handy book will always be helpful for MCQ, but you have to keep revising. MCQ when you're solving, you should always solve at those moments where you feel like tired and other thing. Those moments only you should solve. You should not, for example, some people are morning readers, some people are night readers. See, it depends upon everybody's thought process. So those who are reading in morning, they have a habit that morning the concept will go very fast in your head, evening it will slow down, so you take up MCQ in evening. Similarly, those who have a habit of reading in night, you take up MCQ question in morning or afternoon, depending upon your purpose. Now Learn Cab, my dear soldiers, is one entity which is coming here, my dear soldiers, to solve your issues actually here. See, the Learn Cab founder had a very bad experience when he was doing his company secretary examination. He depended on those video classes. Actually, he had a bad experience, and he decided that no, something I will bring out for the students so that they can use it for their examination purpose. So he had a lot of challenges he faced when he was depending on those video classes. He decided that nothing doing, I will do it in my own way actually. So this is one thing actually here. So Learn Cap enables you to learn anywhere, on the go actually here. So anywhere you can learn. That's the thing here. I have a habit that whenever I drive my car, I keep listening to the videos, my dear soldiers. So what happens? The learning can happen anywhere actually here. You don't have to lose your patience looking at the red light or standing at the bus stop. Anywhere you can learn. That is an advantage you have. Second thing, learn anytime actually here. It's not that, yes, it's quite flexible as far as the timing is concerned. Yes, sometimes articleships is too demanding. You're stretching your time, working at audits, working till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So sometimes you may miss out those classes. So those chances are very less actually. Anytime, anywhere you can learn with a Learn Cap and learn relevant actually here. So lot of questions, lot of research have been done, and lot of research are being done now also, and whether the videos are updated or not. So we ensure that all videos are updated regularly. Fresh videos are there actually for the students to watch. So that is why Learn Cap will be a relevant platform for you, my dear soldiers. Okay, learn anywhere, learn anytime, and learn what is relevant, my dear soldiers. Okay, that's the thing. Then examination day. On examination day, how do you approach the subject, my dear soldiers? How do you go about the writing the exam? So first of all, you have 3 hours in your hand actually here. Maybe that day on examination day, if the examination starts at say at 1:45, you have to be inside the class. So at least you may get 3 hours that day actually here. That's the thing. So now there again, my dear soldiers, the law of compounding will help you. More revision of subject, that is the secret of success. I used to solve accounts question 2-3 times. I used to understand that actually this is how it works actually here. So revision always helps us, my dear soldiers. And those 3 hours also should be spent only in revision and on relevant point. That's the thing here. Now 1:45 to 2 o'clock, they'll give you time to read the question. But generally what they will do, 70 marks will be descriptive, 30 marks will be MCQ. They may not give you MCQ question paper in the beginning. They'll say we'll give you at 2 o'clock. So from 1:45 to 2 o'clock, you please read the descriptive questions. Then from 2 o'clock to 2:05, you have to write down. You need to write down your roll number. You have to shade and other things actually. So you have to write down the those details. You have to update it actually. From 2:05 to 3:20, you please attend 3 descriptive questions. Sir, can I go back and read MCQ? Please don't do that, because from 1:45 to 2 o'clock, your mind is already ready with the answers. But at 2 o'clock, when they give you MCQ question, don't have a habit of reading MCQ question. Oh, I'll read it. No, don't do that. Please don't do that, because you're putting back your mind again by 15 minutes. So straight away jump and write descriptive question, at least 3 questions. So if I take 25 minutes for one question, so from 2:05 to 3:20, my dear soldiers, I take totally 75 minutes. So 23:20, I reach there, my dear soldiers. That's the thing. Or you can decide, after writing 2 descriptive question, you can go back to MCQ. You can decide it. So descriptive question, keep 25 minutes for every question. That mentally you should be prepared. And when you're writing descriptive question, I told you at least 80% of the answer should match with the material. Keywords you should write down. That is the thing. Point wise answer, if you write, nothing like that. Flow chart, avoid it. But if you emergency and if you don't have time, then you can use flow chart. Nothing wrong with it. Examiner will appreciate that. Okay, you have written some keywords. That's the thing here. Then from 3:20 to 4 o'clock, MCQ, 40 minutes solid, you keep it for MCQ. Okay. So don't give a surprise to yourself that I will read MCQ directly in examination. No. Start practicing now. As I told you, those ending hours of the day where you're tired, where you want to relax, you just take up those MCQ question and start solving it. That's it. The practice is required. Definitely practice is required for MCQ question. So 40 minutes solid you give for MCQ. Again 4 to 450. Balance 2 question of descriptive question you can write. Again giving 25 minutes for each question. And 10 minutes you keep it for buffer from 4:50 to 5 o'clock. So from 2:05 to 3:20, 3 descriptive questions you have to write. Totally 6 questions will be there for descriptive. One is optional, one is compulsory also. So out of 6 you have to write down only 5. So either you can choose to write 2, then after that you can solve MCQ, or you can choose to write 3 and solve MCQ. But do not keep MCQ at the end. Please don't do that. Don't keep MCQ at the end actually. Otherwise it'll become a challenging. Always sandwich it between the descriptive question. Okay, that's how you have to approach it, my dear soldiers. Okay, so my dear soldiers, I thank LearnCap for giving this opportunity. I hope this event has been useful for you.
Subscribe to LearnCap and hit the bell icon to get notified.